Look at this. This is the Ohuhu 120 set brush tip markers. Wow, they look awesome. But the big question is, how do they stack up to Copics? Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome, mad creators, to the underground laboratory where we create robots, aliens, zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. And when we do that, a lot of times we use markers to create those things. I've done a few marker videos in the past. It's been a little while, but I've got a good one for you today because I just upgraded to this 120 set of Ohuhu markers. I've used Ohuhu before, starting with this original set that I got. This is way before they even had brush tip markers. It was the chisel tip and the bullet nib, and I always, you know, it was a really good buy, but without that brush tip, I just, you know, it was hard to do without that brush tip because I love that brush tip so much. And then they came out with these. This is the first iteration of the Ohuhu brush tip markers. These were great. There's a chisel tip and the brush tip. The thing is, at the time when these came out, that was the limit of how many colors they had. And unfortunately, I need more colors than this. But the thing about Ohuhu is that they're always listening to their customers. They're always improving their product. And now I've got a bigger set. And, you know, spoilers, there's even a bigger set than this that I didn't even know about. I do now. I wish I would have got that one. But I got this 120 markers. That's pretty good. But like I said, they're always improving on the formula and the design and everything like that. The question is, with all these improvements, how close are they actually to the industry standard? These guys, the Copic markers, we're going to find out. And as we do that, I've got a little sketch here. This is Bosk from Star Wars. I love big Star Wars fan. So I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison with this sketch here using both the Copics and the Ohuhus, or is it the other way around? But anyway, let's get to it. Okay, so here it is. This is the Ohuhu 120 pack. I think the first Ohuhu product I purchased were these here. This is before they had the brush tip, and these were pretty typical of a lot of, you know, lower grade markers. But for whatever reason, Ohuhu just became one of the more popular versions of these, even though there's some very identical markers to these out on the market. But they started doing good, and I think they took that success and they decided to run with it and kind of redesign these markers. So after that, and you can see there's quite a few more colors than here. This is the first set I had when Ohuhu first came out with their brush tip markers. They came out with this set, which is, I think it's a 48 set. And I really like these markers. I've done a review on them. The big problem was there just weren't that many colors. So that was the huge drawback. And there's some other, and we'll get into them once we start comparing them to the Copic markers. But as you can see with this one, there's more colors, so I knew Ohuhu had more colors. It was just a matter of waiting until they got to it. And the thing about Ohuhu is they're a really good brand, is that they really listen to their customers and critics or whatever, and they continually improve on those. So it's been a while since I purchased this set, and like I said, it was a great set, but just very limited to the colors, and I knew they were going to be coming out with more, and I didn't know to what extent. So I went to go get I think a 70. I heard that at one point they came out with a 72 set, and I was about to purchase those, and then I saw these, the 120 set, and I'm like, wow, I am gonna get this, because I think I paid $90 for this, and like 3 days after they put it on sale for, I think, 65. So yeah, that wasn't fun. But the thing is, just kind of keep a look. But even at the $90 compared to what I was paying for Copics, and we'll also, you know, we'll get into the difference in the quality and everything too, because you have to consider that. So here's the set, and what I realized after I purchased that, not only do they have this 120 set, they also have a 168 set and a 216 set. So now I'm kind of wondering if I should have got that bigger set. But in actuality, this is a lot of markers. This is more than my set of Copics. Here's my Copic markers here. Copics has, this is I think a 79 set, and they have two different color variations. There are two different 79 sets, and then they've got the individual markers and everything. So even at this 120 set, it's more than I have of these Copic markers, and I bought some individually with these Copics too. And I wanted to just kind of dive into the markers briefly, show you what they look like, and I'll go in and I'll kind of show you the pros and cons of each one. Of course, we've got the famous brush tip here, and then we also have the chisel tip. What else? It comes with this, which I probably won't use, but it just to keep your paper from bleeding. I typically draw on cardstock, so we've got that there. And then this I really like. This is something that is really nice to have because, let's see if I can get that camera to focus here. It's just a color chart, so I can go in with the markers and I can go ahead and find each number. That way I don't have to write those out, because typically you have to, when you make a color chart, you have to do it yourself. You have to write all the numbers. So this is pretty much here for you, and then you just find the numbers, you fill them in. And because anytime, you know, you can find printed versions that'll show you the, like in here, these never look like the actual colors. So it's nice to have that. It's gonna save some time. I'm not gonna have to write all that information in there. So that's great, I love that. So that's what it comes with, and I really do like the case that that the Ohuhu have. It's sectioned in 4s. These were, when these came, they weren't organized the way they are. I put my blues and my greens and reds and grays together and stuff. When it first came, they were just all over the place. Not a big deal. It's no big deal to organize them. But anyway, so this is the 120 set, but I want to show you a comparison. I'm going to put up 2 drawings, and we're going to do one in the Copic markers, one in the Ohuhu, and I'll give some of my feedback on pros and cons of each, and then I'll let you make your own decision. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I've got 2 different versions of this drawing. This is Bosk, he's a bounty hunter from Star Wars. I always kind of like this design, so I thought I would use that as an opportunity to test out both the Ohuhu and the Copic markers and just kind of compare them side by side so you can see the difference. You can kind of make your own decision based on what you're seeing visually, but while we do that, I want to go through just some different aspects of the markers and either give a plus or a minus for each one, or some of them may just even out. So first of all, I want to talk about the brush tip. Yes, the Ohuhus and the Copic markers both have the brush tip. So that's definitely, you know, I mean, so it's kind of, that one kind of evens up as far as that, because I don't know, I mean, even before brush tips came around, I was using chisel tips and bullet nibs, and that was great. But once I first started using Copics with that brush nib, and at the time I think they were the only one that had it, and it took a long time for other companies to catch up. But now that Ohuhu's is putting these out, and there's some other ones too, but so far, as far as the lower price markers, I think Ohuhu's definitely got the best brush tip marker that I've tried anyway. So they both have that brush tip. They both have the chisel tip. So some markers you'll find they'll have a brush and a bullet, some will have a bullet and a chisel. If I had my druthers, I would prefer to have the chisel tip and the brush tip, because you can still get that fine stuff with the bullet and get a little more, you can blend a little better, but that brush tip is pretty awesome. They do have the chisel tip as well. So as far as the size of the brushes, I think the Ohuhu marker, I mean, they're pretty similar. The size of the brush tips are pretty similar on the brushes. Chisel tip's a little different. On the Ohuhu marker, the chisel tip is a bit wider. Copic is a bit narrower, so I'll let you be the judge of that. I think I prefer like a wider chisel tip to just get a little more coverage. So personally, I would go with the Ohuhu on that. I like the broader chisel tip on that. Now, the feel of the brush tip, Ohuhu's is a little stiffer, and again, this can be a pro or a con. Copics are a little softer.
but I think it's kind of to taste. I don't mind the little, and it's, when I say stiffer, it's not super stiff. I mean, it's definitely flexible. It is a brush tip that the Ohuhu has. The Copic is a little, or Copic, however you want to pronounce it, a little softer, but yeah, I mean, that's up to personal taste, whether you want a little stiffer brush or a little softer. I might like the stiffer a little bit better. It's got just a little more stability, but it's negligible, the difference, really, to be honest. The feel of the chisel tip, it's pretty much the same between both markers, so I would put that, kind of even that out between the two of those. So as far as replacement nibs, does the Ohuhu have replacement nibs? No, they don't have replacement nibs. Copics do have replacement nibs, but the Ohuhu nibs are reversible, so you can pull it out with the tweezers, put it back in if it starts to get frayed. I've used Ohuhu for a while, and I don't see them, which you might think with a lower price point marker, you might think that those would start to fray. Like, I've tried like Artist Lofts, the Michaels brand, and those are horrible as far as fraying. I think I reviewed those and gave it an okay review, but then the more I used them, the more I wish I could take that back, because they started to fray. I don't really get that with the Ohuhu. I don't get that fraying. But if you were to, I haven't had to reverse that tip yet, but if I did, they are reversible. Are the Copic markers reversible? Yes and no. They do have a pointy tip on the other side of their brush tip, but it's not the same. It's almost a cross between like a brush tip and a bullet. It comes to a sort of a fine, like a quicker point, I guess, if that makes sense. So they're sort of reversible, but they're not really the same. So on that, as far as reversibility, I would definitely give that to the Ohuhu. But like I said, with the Copics, you can just replace the nibs, because they do make replacement nibs, so that's always nice. Refills. Do the Ohuhus have refills? Not yet. It's my understanding that's something they're working on. But they don't, that's not an option yet. Copics, they do have refills for all their colors. Sometimes they're hard to come by, but they are available. Here's a big one. Do they sell individual Ohuhu markers? No, they don't sell those yet. Copics, yes, you can get all the different colors individually. So that's a definite plus as far as the Copic markers. But as far as between, like, I don't know if they're working on individual markers, if that's a thing with the Ohuhus, but if they come out with one or the other, like either the refills, which I know they're working on, because if you can get the refills, you probably don't need to buy, the individual markers if you can get a refill for that. So that's something they're working on. But here's the thing, and this is the kind of point I make, is that, so the problem is, you buy 120 set and you run out of one marker, then if they don't sell individual markers, so what do you buy, a whole new pack? Well, I've heard people make that argument. I wouldn't make that argument. What I would say, because the thing about alcohol-based markers is they're all compatible. So if one of my, say if I got a light blue Ohuhu marker, it starts to run out, am I gonna go out and buy a brand new 120 set? No. I'll go out and buy, and I'll pay whatever it is to get an individual Copic marker and use them interchangeably, because they're all interchangeable. So I'm not like, when I sit down to do an illustration, I don't say, oh, this has to be an Ohuhu illustration, or this has to be a Copic illustration, or Spectrum Noir, or whatever the different markers, or Chameleon. I've tried a bunch of different markers, and a lot of times I'll mix them and match them, because some companies have different colors, or just what I have on hand, and there's no reason you can't mix them together. So for me, it's not a big deal. It would be nice, I think, if Ohuhu did start selling them individually, but that's not like a game changer. I mean, it's not like it's not a, what's the term I'm searching for? It's not like a make or break thing for me. So anyway, so they don't sell, Ohuhu don't sell the individual markers, Copic do. The shape of the marker, the Ohuhus, I really like the design of both of them. The shape of the Ohuhu, it's more round, and the Copic is more, it's like an oval shaped. The size of the markers, the Ohuhu is a little bit bigger, so it's bulkier. Now that could be a pro or a con. It's sometimes the feel of the Copics it's a little more svelte, so it's a little easier to handle. It's not as bulky, and there's not like a huge difference between them, but really, again, there's not much difference. The thing about the size of the markers, I don't know this for a fact. This might have to be something I have to test out, but as far as how much ink each one holds, it stands to reason because the Ohuhu is bigger that it may hold more ink, but I don't know that for a fact. I don't know what I haven't broke one open or poured one out and see kind of what that reservoir looks like. But the Ohuhus are a little bit bigger. Now, because the Ohuhus are round, you'd think they may roll off, you know, if you're working at an angle or something, they may roll away. That's not the case because the Ohuhu markers have little tabs on the caps that prevents them from rolling, so that's a really cool part of that design. Copic markers, you don't necessarily have to worry about them rolling because they're not totally round, so that kind of evens out for both of those. And then as far as the caps, a big thing for me is with markers is the caps that they'll fit on the end. So when you take a cap off, you don't lose it. You can stick it on the end of your marker. Ohuhu does that. They haven't done that in all their iterations. They've had a few different designs. At one point they had it, then it didn't snap on the back, and then they brought it back again. So right now the Ohuhu markers do snap on the back. Copics don't, and this is one of my biggest gripes with Copics. I don't know why that's the case, why they don't make them so they'll snap on the backs. I mean, with a high quality marker like Copic, there shouldn't be any reason why. Maybe just because they're sticking with the design, people like it. I'm not sure. But anyway, so that one will kind of go to the Ohuhu markers as far as that goes. As far as those caps go, the colors on the back of the caps, how close are they to the actual marker? The Ohuhu, not so great, but honestly, that's the same with pretty much all markers. They're all pretty bad as far as the cap, the color on the cap matching. I think Ohuhu may be a bigger offender than Copic as far as the matchability, but that's why we've got these, you know, that's why Ohuhu includes that chart where you can write your own thing. I would never trust either a picture of the colors or the color on the cap because they're always quite a bit off. So that one's kind of a wash between both of those. So the caps, the way they fit together, I think I've had some problems with my Copic markers when they're sitting in the case and everything, and the caps not being that secure. Typically they feel like they snap pretty well on the Copics, but I've had major problems with caps coming off, and when you're paying, you know, almost like $8 a marker, that's a problem. So I haven't experienced that with the Ohuhus, although I have heard people that when they first open their set, they have some dry markers. So as far as the dry, if you have a dry markers, both companies will replace those for you, and so that's really not a problem. I mean, it's kind of a hassle, and I've heard people say they opened up, you know, I've heard reviews where they opened up their Ohuhus and they said a lot of them were dried out. They're going to replace those for you. I didn't have that problem. I haven't went through every single one of my markers, but I haven't had any that are dried out. So whether I got lucky or whatever, but like I said, if they do dry out, not a big deal. As far as the naming on both of them have the names on the cap. So they have both, each company, Ohuhu and Copic, have it's like a numbering system and just a name. Like I'm looking at one, it says G8 on the Ohuhu, grass green. So sometimes it's good, like, oh, hand me a grass green, and it's easier to remember. But I also like the numbering system because typically, like with the grays, I can oh, it's cool gray 1, cool gray 2, you know. And I think even the numbering, even the name of the numbering for grays, that might not be the best example because gray is typically cool gray 1, 2, 3, as well as like, so I'm looking at a cool gray 3 in the Copics, and it's C3 Cool Gray 3. So they both have that numbering system. So with that, they're pretty much, you know, what I think Copic might have a better system as far as some of them are a little hard to determine what they are in the Ohuhu, but they are there. And you know, and the weird thing is with both of those, sometimes you'll get like a color, like it'll be like a B something, and then it'll be a 1, and then they'll have a 2, and you'll think, oh, the 2 will be a little darker, but sometimes they're completely different. So that's just something, and again, that's why we have the chart and everything. So so yeah, so they both got the name and the number, which is good. At one point, I think Ohuhu did stop putting either the name and they just had the number, but they brought that back. So they're listening, and that's a good thing. Copic has been pretty much unchanged for a while, and I guess maybe you could say, you know, why mess up a good thing, or don't, you know, if it's broke, don't fix it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And maybe that is Copic's philosophy, but at least Ohuhu, since they're a younger brand, they're making changes and everything, where I think Copic is a little more just content, or a little more, you know, they're happy with the way things are. So they're not really changing much. So as far as the number of colors, Copic definitely has more. I think they've got like 150 plus. I don't know the exact number of the Ohuhus, but I know it's around, it's at least 100, or it's at least 216. So in addition to the big set, or the one I've got too, is they also have a set of pastels and a set of flesh tones, because there's not a whole, the set I have doesn't have a whole lot of flesh tones. So I think I'm gonna go out and buy the flesh tone set too. I probably will buy the pastels as well, even though I don't have those. But so I don't know if that adds, like if you get the biggest set they make, that 216, I don't know if all those flesh tones, so I don't know if there's more than that with the Ohuhus, but that's a good amount. I mean, it's more than most other manufacturers. Copic definitely has the most, the variety of colors, but you know, at $8 a pop, I don't know how many people that have that many of them. So even though they have more colors, most people can't afford to get all the colors anyway. And some of them are so close and that's another thing. If you run out like of a green in the Ohuhu, chances are there may be one similar to that. So I'm not really too worried about that. Now, as far as the blending, how do they blend? As you can see, as I'm doing this, they blend pretty well, and I tend not to, I don't do a whole lot of blending. I do mostly layers in my illustrations, but I think definitely the Copic is better at blending the Ohuhu, but the Ohuhu is still really good. So I would say Ohuhu, very good as far as the blending. Copic, excellent. Now, as far as smudging, there's less smudging with the Ohuhu, and there's more with the Copic, and I think that's just, you know, I think that's just a sort of a side effect of what you get. Like if the marker blends better, it's probably going to bleed a little more. So I think you take the good with the bad with that. They're both alcohol-based markers. A lot of the markers out there, you know, they got water-based out there too. Alcohol. There's even xylene-based. The xylene ad markers, I love those. Those are great, but they're really hard to find and everything, and they're not really compatible as much with the other markers. But so I think alcohol-based are pretty much the more popular. As far as vibrancy, I find the Ohuhus to be a little more vibrant. You can kind of see that in some of the, you know, when you're looking at these two, the browns are a little more vibrant with the Ohuhu. That could be a plus or minus. Sometimes you don't want it to be that vibrant, sometimes you do. So with that one, I'll say that's kind of up to your own taste. Now the cases that they come in, I really love the case that Ohuhus come in. I like that canvas style case that they have, whereas the Copic markers comes with a plastic case, and they do separate them more. There's like an individual slot for each marker, which is kind of cool, but I like to take my markers out because I'll go and do a signing at a comic store or whatever, and I'll bring my markers, and it's the way that Copics have theirs, it's just really not that portable. Now granted, you go buy any case or you can put them anywhere, you don't have to keep them in that, so that's not a big deal. But I like the fact that the Ohuhus come with this really nice case, and it's really portable, and I really dig that they do that. So I would give the plus on that to the Ohuhus. So we come down to the last factor, and this is probably the biggest one. So far what we've seen here, if we go down the list, definitely, I mean, you do you do get what you pay for, but to a certain extent, because I think just Copics are way overpriced. They're super expensive. You know, you're talking about anywhere from $6 to $8 for an individual Copic marker. Like I said, Ohuhu doesn't sell theirs individually, but if they did, they'd be anywhere from like 50 cents to maybe $1 at the most. And Copics, I'm not gonna lie, Copics are the superior product, but when you're dealing with like almost like a $7 or more difference, honestly, I just go with the Ohuhu because I mean, if you're super stickler about that, just having that ultimate quality, and if you got the money to spend, yeah, sure, Copics, but that price difference, I mean, it's the quality difference is so minimal, the price difference is so broad that's why I don't know. Like I said, if I run out of a particular color of Ohuhu, I'll go out and buy a comparable color of the Copic marker. But I'm not gonna go out and buy another, you know, set of 78 Copic markers for $350 when I can buy 120 case of Ohuhu markers for, like I said, I paid about 100. I've seen that same set for 65 now. So just look at the price and look for those deals. But man, I don't know. I think I'm sold on these Ohuhu markers. I really think they're great quality, especially for the price. And the weird thing is, I think if you take Copic out of the equation, all the other markers I've tried, I think the Ohuhu is better than most all the other ones I've tried, other than the xylene ones. I think they're the ad markers, the xylene, I forgot, I've done a review on them. I love those, and they've got a really unique tip. It's not a brush tip, it's like a combination of all the different tips, but they're almost impossible to find. They don't have that many colors, and they're not compatible with the others. So I'll take that one out of the equation. And of the lower priced, I think Ohuhu may be one of the lowest price, and it is definitely one of the better qualities. And just as a company, they're just doing great things. They're listening, they're making improvements. So any discrepancies there may be right now, I think they're going to improve on that. So anyway, that is my review and comparison between Ohuhu brush tip markers and Copics. But I'll let you judge between the two drawings here. Do you see a major difference? If so, if you like the Copic better, then go with the Copic. But like I said, I don't think there's a big enough difference. So I would err on the side of, you know, the less expensive because that price difference is such a big deal. So there you go.
All right, so there you go. Here are the final results. This right here is the Ohuhu. This is the Copic. What do you think? I mean, I think they look really similar. I think the Ohuhu might have me sold. Not that I'll never buy another Copic marker again, but that price differentiation is huge. And I think I'm just going to stock up on as many of these, and if I need to fill in a few here and there of the Copic marker, I'm going to do that. But overall, I'm really happy with the price and the quality of this Ohuhu, and I think they converted me, to be perfectly honest. But that's my opinion. What about you? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. I'll see you guys later. That is all.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can follow me at Serkworks on social media, and now you can support the work that I do on Patreon. Do you like making comics? Then go to Serkworks.com and pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's packed full of fonts, brushes, templates, and more. And best of all, it's totally free.